Morning, everybody. We're going to be taking a look at those updates in Bright MLS. We're going to get started now. So, what are we really looking at? Well, there were a couple key changes. So, we now have that new concessions field upon listing entry. So, seller concessions. We have that new field out as of the 11th of June. And that is the new field that you can use to indicate whether or not your seller is willing to negotiate. So, we're going to take a look at that new field. We're going to take a look at the revised final concessions. We're also going to take a look at that individual document that you are also going to need to get signed with every new client after 8/14. So anytime you sign a buyer agency contract, anytime you sign a listing contract, you will need to get this document signed. So we're going to take a look at where that document lives in Bright. We're going to break that document down. But I would say one of the best resources that you guys have available is the brightmls.com/NAR settlement page. So that is a news article, but we do continue to keep that updated based off what's going on in the industry. So while things have changed in Bright MLS, we're going to go ahead and take a look at those items. But if you ever want to meet with one of us coaches, we do offer individual or kind of private one-on-one sessions. So if you ever need to pick the brain of one of the coaches here at Bright, please feel free to take a look at brightmls.com/office hours. I'll show you where you can schedule an appointment on the website as well. But look, as we go over those changes in Bright, if you want to reach out to Accuracy and Policy, well, I'll show you where you can find their information as well. If you're taking notes, their direct line is 301-838-7140. Again, I'll show you where you can find all of that info on the website. Again, June 11, that's when we rolled out that new document, the new concessions field, and the new revised final concession field. We're going to take a look at those kind of entry options and listing management. But between now and 8/14 is basically your acclimation period. So those changes are coming down tomorrow, 8/14. So tomorrow, you're going to get into the MLS and you're going to notice that there's just no compensation on any listings anymore. So we're going to review all of that, plus that document, those new fields, and where you can find additional resource information in Bright. Now, as we're going through today, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you don't want to ask it in an open forum, send me a direct message. So, concessions. What's going to happen with that information? Well, the concessions yes/no field in listing management or seller concessions when you're entering your listing, that information is going to be IDX'd out. What does that mean? Well, it's going to be going out on the data feeds from Bright to all of those individual websites that buyer agents have, or seller agents for that matter. So that information is going to be going out on the data feeds. Now, that's only what is basically seller concessions or concessions offered. That is going to be going out on the IDX feed. Final concessions will not be going out on the IDX feed. So when you're talking about concessions at close, when that listing has closed, if you're trying to run comps, pricing analysis, Bright MLS is going to be the place to be to find that information. So final concessions will not syndicate out. Concessions offered will. Concessions offered, that's a seller to buyer offer of concessions, if any. We're going to take a look at that field, but those fields are not binding. Okay. So when we actually take a look at that button or that entry option, then we'll kind of break that down a little bit further. But what's happening with that data? Well, again, concessions offered, a yes/no field that will be syndicated. Final concessions that will not be syndicated. So the new seller concession field, it is simply a yes/no, which you guys can use to indicate whether or not your seller is willing to negotiate. Again, it's a simple yes/no button. So there's really not a whole lot to it. So we did make some revisions to this button. So for anybody that has attended any of the previous sessions here at Bright about this new concession field and the new document, Document hasn't changed, but this concession field has. So there's no longer a drop down to indicate a dollar amount or a percent. It is simply seller concession yes, no field. All right, and again, that information will syndicate out. So any of those third parties that choose to display that information, they will have it available in the data feeds. Concession's final. So anybody out there that's running comps, if you find it valuable to have that concession information, I would say go ahead and fill these fields out when you're moving your listing to close. With that said, you don't have to. Neither of these two fields that we're looking at today are required. Okay, so concessions offered is not required. Final concessions, well, you don't have to enter that information either if you don't want to. However, I would say if you find it valuable, well, then I would certainly encourage you to plug that information in when you're moving your listing to closed. With that said, your brokerage is likely going to have instruction as to whether or not you guys are even going to be using these new fields. With that said, we're going to take a look at the functionality of those fields and how you guys can use them and the appropriate kind of entry options. Seller concessions, well, I mean, that's pretty straightforward, guys. It's a yes, no. When you're talking about final concessions, again, if you find it valuable, I would certainly encourage you to fill it out. So when you're moving that listing to close, go ahead and fill that information out. So when people are running comps, they can see what that quote unquote net sale price is. Now, one of the key changes, what's going on with that settlement, is the removal of compensation within the MLS. So starting tomorrow, there will simply be no mention of compensation in the MLS, period, full stop. Okay. So we don't want to get creative in remarks by putting a 3-bedroom with the perfect location with PER in caps, centrally located, CENT. We don't want to get creative that way. Okay, guys. If there's any kind of coded language, anything to that effect, alluding to compensation for a buyer broker, that would likely get some attention from our accuracy and policy department. So with that said, guys, the industry is changing. You can simply not enter compensation into the MLS anymore. Okay. So just try to get away from that idea. So I just want to take a moment and see if we have any questions so far. But again, there's to be no mention of compensation, bonuses, payments, anything to that effect for buyer broker offers. So no mention of compensation in the MLS after 8/14. That is it. So I just want to be clear there. Again, the new concessions field, the concessions yes, no, that is the field that you guys can use to indicate whether or not your seller is willing to negotiate for buyers' closing costs at closing. So again, if your seller's willing to negotiate, you can use that concession field. Now, where's that information going to display if it is available? So again, there is no dollar amount anymore. It'll simply be a yes, no. And it'll be at the bottom of your full reports. So agent full, agent 360, no client style reports. But again, agent full style reports, that information is just going to be at the bottom. So again, the seller concessions is simply going to be a yes, no. And then when that listing is moved to closed, if the listing agent had entered that information when they moved it to closed, well, that information is going to populate at the bottom. There are only going to be, what is effectively 4 total fields. Buyer broker cost is no longer going to populate, so that's been removed. Okay. So again, there are only 3 fields when you're moving that listing to closed: home repairs, finance related, and any other closing cost, the third option, and that's going to sum down at the bottom in the 4th field. You're not going to be able to actually edit the 4th field. It's just going to basically tally up the above 4 fields. So again, when you're talking about where that information is going to display, it's going to be at the bottom of the full reports. If you're looking at an agent gallery style report, well, that information is going to be condensed into a link. And then you'll see that link at the lower right-hand side of that gallery style report. Basically, any kind of condensed or compressed style report you're going to see a link there. You're not actually going to have enough space to display any of that potential information. Again, keeping in mind only if it's been entered. When you're talking about that one-line report, you're not going to be able to add concessions offered or seller concessions. However, when you're looking at closed listings, you will be able to add that column for concessions final. So you will be able to populate that into a custom one-line display if you'd like. So if you're trying to put together a comps at a glance style report, well, you'll have that opportunity to add those concessions final or final concessions. The coming soon status. All right, so this is one of the key changes for you guys. Coming soon is no longer going to have a 21-day window. Well, 21 days for normal residential resale, 2 years for major rehabs or new construction. That's just going away. Not the status, but the limitations. So if your seller wants to be coming soon for 2, 3, 4 months, well, they'll have that opportunity to market that house as they see fit using that coming soon option. So that limitation for the 21-day window or 2 years for new construction, that is going away. Right? If your seller, again, wants to be coming soon for 20, 40, 60, 80 days, great. Just get that on that disclosure form, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment. Compensation. We already discussed it in brief, but in short, no mention of compensation in the MLS after 8/14. All right. Just want to be clear there. Don't try to get creative, guys. All right. That is a $1,000 fine if it is found that you are trying to enter some form of blanket offer of comp in the MLS after 8/14. Any mention of compensation after 8/14 will yield a fine, which you can appeal. But if it's a flagrant violation, guys, don't expect that to be appealed. All right, looks like we do have a question. Again, guys, any questions, please drop them in the chat. So, question, are you allowed to direct people elsewhere towards your own website through a QR code, for example, to find out the compensation commission amount, or is no mention of where the agent can find that info allowed? All right, very good question. So in the agent remarks, you guys will have an opportunity to place a URL or a link. All right, so agent remarks, not public remarks, guys, but agent remarks. You can enter a link to your website, which may display the compensation offer. Okay, so click here to see more details. It's okay. Click here to see compensation information. That is not okay. So again, absolutely no mention of compensation in the MLS after 8/14. All right. But again, a link in the agent remarks, that is okay. Now, in terms of where you can display that info, question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Please, again, guys, any questions, please let me know. No. Can we list compensation on showing time instructions? No. So as far as Bright is concerned, you cannot enter any compensation information in showing time. You can display it on your own site, but again, can't mention it in the remarks, and you can't display other brokers' offers of compensation on your websites. So it is just to be your offers of compensation, no other brokerages. Okay. So again, in terms of comp, where it can be displayed, just not in the MLS. Okay. Again, that is a key takeaway. No mention of compensation, commission, buyer broker payments, anything to that effect. Bonuses, doesn't matter, guys. No mention of comp on 8/14 or after. Now, some of the other changes that are coming down the pike. Well, the entry and distribution of listings, the way in which we're going to look at that 2-day window for listing entry is changing. We're going to take a look at that together on the document. This new form, I'll refer to it as the MLS disclosure or Bright MLS disclosure. It is officially titled Bright MLS All Subscriber Client Form. Anyhow, we're going to take a look at it together. But this breaks down, or should I say that document breaks down listing entry. You guys will likely have some questions, so please don't hesitate to ask. But again, we're going to take a look at this document. It's going to highlight, well, basically when that listing is going in the MLS and how or if it is going in the MLS, such as active coming soon or office exclusive. The office exclusive policy hasn't changed, guys. That remains the same. Okay. If your seller doesn't want to go in the MLS, you still got to get the office exclusive form signed, retained in your document package. You'll then need to report that listing to Bright by entering it into listing management as an office exclusive. And so again, that policy process hasn't changed. We now just have that document there alongside the new consumer form, or again, the MLS disclosure form. So that is where we're going to take a look at it together. Now, where can you find that on the website? Well, we're going to go ahead and log in. Then we're going to go to either listings across the top or policies at the upper right. And of course, give me one moment, guys. All right, so again, where does that document live in Bright? Well, it's two locations. It'll already be uploaded to your major document providers, Zip Forms, SkySlope, WolfNet. A lot of the large providers already have this document uploaded into their library. Now, if your individual library doesn't have it, you can go ahead and download the PDF. So you're going to go to Bright MLS Rules, scroll down, you have the client disclosure form. Okay. You're also going to find it under listings, profile sheets, and listing forms right here. Okay. So we're going to take a look at that document together. All right, so it's a one-page document, guys, two sections. Seller is going to fill out the whole document, the buyer's just at the top. Again, when would you get this document signed or filled out? Well, when you're talking about a buyer, you're signing your buyer agency contract. You're talking about a seller, talking about your listing contract. Basically, these documents are going to go hand in hand with those other documents, buyer agency contract and the listing contract, right? So again, you need to get one of these signed for every buyer and every seller. But when you're filling out the form, how do you fill it out? Well, at the very top, you have your name, your broker's name, the client, date, an indication as to whether or not they're a buyer or a seller client, and then their home address, either the house they're selling or the house that they're currently living in, looking to move out of. Top part of the document basically highlights that fees are negotiable. Right doesn't set them. The trade organization sets them. No law sets those fees. They are negotiable. Again, the key takeaway here in this document, in the top, is what do they need to know about broker fees? Basically, guys, they're negotiable. All right. So they'll then initial it. So again, top is for buyers and sellers. Bottom, this is just for buyers. I'm sorry, this is just for sellers. Pardon me. Top is for buyers and sellers. Bottom, just for sellers. So this is where we might have some questions, guys. So feel free to drop them in the chat or maybe take yourself off mute. Keep in mind, we do have a relatively large crowd today. All right, looks like we have a question. For buyers, sellers, do we need to have current clients sign the form too? All right, so any buyer agency contract or listing contract entered into before 8/14, as far as Bright is concerned, do not need this form. Right, your brokerage may have other instruction, kind of a cover your assets type feature to get this document filled out. But again, as far as Bright is concerned, if it's dated prior to 8/14, you do not need this document. 8/14 or after, you will need this document. Okay. So again, buyer, seller, both need to fill it out. And top just for buyers and sellers, bottom sellers only. Okay, so sellers are going to fill out the whole form, buyers are just going to do the top. Yes, you will need this form for rental listings. If it's coming soon, do you have a all right? Good question, Stephanie. If it's coming soon, do we have to have a starting showing date on the top of the sellers only portion? Kind of. We'll break that down, but yes, I mean, you will still have, or should I say, you will need to have an expected on market date. Yes. Now, can that date change? Yes. Yes, it can. You just need to get an amendment to this document. Okay, they can strike through, put a new date, initial. That would be okay. I would recommend an amendment, just very clearly outlining the change. Guys, right now is probably one of the most important times to make sure your paperwork is in order. Okay. Do we need this form for rental listings? Yes. If coming soon, yes, you will need to indicate an expected on market date. Is this form the result of the court requiring as a right initiative? No, this disclosure is required. Right? So again, this document is required for every one of your clients. Guys, we don't want to make you fill out more paperwork. We know you have enough as it is. But unfortunately, as a result of that settlement, we do have to have this disclosure. Okay. So let's take a look at, as a seller, how would I fill this form out? All right. So line one, when will your broker allow potential buyers or renters to learn about the property? So whatever date that is, whatever learn date that your seller has for other buyers or renters for their property, whatever date that is, that's what goes in this field. So say you and I sign a contract today or tonight, whatever, 8/13. Okay. Again, not required until tomorrow, but let's just pretend we're operating in tomorrow's environment, the new environment. Okay. So again, industry is just changing, guys. We will need this form. You don't need to submit it to us right off the bat, but you do need to retain it in your document package. Okay. So again, we signed tonight. Great. Well, if that contract was valid and in force tonight, let's pretend I'm the only seller. I'm the only person that owns a house. So it's a valid in force contract. Everybody signed it. No future start date. So we're just talking about today, 8/13, right? So we're no longer looking at that contract effective date for listing entry. We are looking at this date here. When will your broker allow potential buyers or renters to learn about the property? Whatever date it is that you and the seller agree upon, that is what's going to go in this field. And that is when you need to report the listing to Bright. Okay. Well, technically you have a 2-day grace period. Let's keep it simple. Whatever date you put in this field is the date in which you need to enter that listing into Bright. Okay. So whether that be going in as active or office exclusive, we haven't even gotten there yet. So this is effectively your reporting date. When are you going to report that listing to Bright? So once you have that nailed down, how or if I, as the seller, want to use Bright, how will your broker use Bright? They will choose one. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, guys. This is a consumer form, but the interpretation for you guys, I'm going to go A, B, C, D. A is active with internet set as yet, as yes. So that's what you guys understand as a regular old active listing, okay? It shows up in Bright as active. It syndicates out to all the big third-party websites and apps, okay? A regular old active listing. 2B, that's active internet, no. What does that mean? Well, that listing will then only live in Bright systems. So it's only going to be in search, the client portal, and the app. All right, so it's not syndicating out to the internet, any of the third-party sites. Hence that internet yes no option. So again, 2A, regular old active listing, shows up all across the web. 2B, a little less common to be candid. My years here at Bright, I think I've only gotten a handful, 5, 10 questions about that specific field. So again, pretty uncommon to see an active listing with the internet set to no. Again, if internet is set to no, that listing only lives in Bright MLS. It does not syndicate out to any of those third-party sites. It'll live in Bright Listing Search, the client portal, and the MLS Touch and MLS Client apps. Okay. So that's A and B. Both active, one internet yes, one internet no. One goes out across the web, the other one only lives in Bright. Now we're going to take a look at those fields in listing management in a couple minutes, but moving on. So we did have a question about coming soon. So again, say we sign tonight, 8/13. Say I don't want you to start letting people learn about the property until 9/1. All right, so 9/1 is the date that we plug in here. But say I choose to see. My home is ready for marketing, but will be ready for showings beginning on, let's just say 11/1. So again, we sign tonight. I don't want you to start letting people know about that property being on the market until 9/1. And on 9/1, I want you to enter my listing or my property is coming soon. So right here, we then have to identify what is effectively our expected on market date. So anybody that has used coming soon before, you know that there is a required field called your expected on market date in which that listing is going to go active. That is the date that you're going to plug into this field if you're using coming soon. So again, we sign tonight. You're going to start letting people know about it on 9/1, but I will be ready for showings on 11/1. Okay. Well, hopefully that made sense. 2C tends to get the most questions. And then 2D, I'll let your office exclusive. The client doesn't want to use the MLS to market or distribute the property, and you're going to market it yourself. All right, that's fine. They're going to choose 2D. If your client chooses 2D, you will also need the office exclusive form. Again, neither of those two documents, this one you're looking at here or the office exclusive, neither of the two are required to be uploaded to Bright. Okay, so you don't have any kind of immediate reporting process. Granted, you still need to either enter the listing or enter the office exclusive, but these two documents you will need to retain in your listing package, whatever you guys want to call it. Okay, any of your listing documents. Right, if you're talking about a buyer, fine, whatever kind of buyer paperwork folio that you have, this document needs to be in both. And again, bottom not relevant for the buyers. Buyers only do the top, sellers do both. You need to keep this document with your listing package. All right. So again, how does the seller fill out the bottom? Well, when are you going to start letting people know about the property? Whatever date you guys settle on, that's what goes in here. Then on that date, you're going to hop into Bright as the agent. The seller is going to choose one of these four. Then once the seller does that, you're going to take this document, your listing information, you're going to head back to your computer and you're going to start plugging that listing in. Right? So again, if they choose today, well, you just have to mark it office exclusive. So there's a button for office exclusive, yes, no. So we're going to take a look at listing management in just a moment, but I want to see if we have any questions. And if I have a listing temp off, would you recommend I get the listing contract signed and relist it as a new listing? Um, I think I would probably have to defer to your brokerage on that, just like whatever their best practice is. I'm not sure I could really make a recommendation there. I mean, if you were to relist it, it would repopulate on the hot sheets. You would need to take that temp off listing to canceled for getting a new contract signed. The previous one would be void then, so you go to the new one. So yeah, I would have to say double check with your broker. If you have any other questions there, please feel free to let me know. So again, that is the form. Buyers and sellers do the top, sellers only do the bottom. When does the seller want you to let people start learning about the property? Well, whatever date you guys choose there, that's what's going to go in this line. That's the date in which you enter the listing into Bright. Do they want to go active internet? Yes. Active internet? No. Coming soon with an internet yes, no option. Or do they want to go office exclusive and not utilize the MLS at all? Also, if they choose to, they also need the office exclusive form signed as well. And again, you don't need to send it to us right off the bat. If we request that document, you need to turn that document around in 1 day, okay? 1 calendar day. So if you get an email from Accuracy and Policy Guys, that is an email to pay attention to, okay? All right, so it looks like we have another one here. Is there a place in the MLS for you to upload this disclosure when signed? Okay, so you do not need to upload this disclosure to Bright. Okay, so this is just part of your document package. Okay, not something you're going to upload to Bright. If Bright so basically, if our accuracy and policy department reaches out to you via email asking you to supply this document, you need to turn around in a day. And you just respond to that email. But again, you don't need to upload this document anywhere to Bright. Okay, only if we request it do you have to send it to us. What's the full name of this form? That is a great question. It is right here, Bright MLS Client Disclosure Form. Okay. And again, where is it found? Listings at the top, profile sheets and listing forms. Takes you to this page here, or go to policies, Bright Rules. Scroll down just a little bit and you'll see that form there. So again, do we have any other questions about this form? All right, so again, just a disclosure, guys. What do they need to know about fees? Basically, up here at the top, they're negotiable. Then for the sellers, well, more specifically the sellers, buyers aren't doing this bottom side or bottom part. How are we going to use Bright, if at all? And so when do I want you to start letting people know about the property? Well, whatever date we settle on, that's what we're going to plug in there. And then I, as a seller, have to choose what is effectively one of the status options. Active internet, yes. Active internet, no. C is coming soon with your expected on market date and an internet, yes, no option. And then D, office exclusive. There is no internet option for office exclusive because it's not going anywhere. Right? We don't even publish it within the MLS for other agents to see. Your broker would get a daily report of any new office exclusives. Whatever the broker then chooses to do with that listing information, your office exclusive, I mean, that's between you guys. All right. So that is the form. Please let me know if you have any questions. We're going to move on. We're going to jump into listing management to take a look at a couple of those buttons. And real quick, guys, as I'm getting in here, so I'm just going to click the edit button to get to the full edit page, but your brokerage is more than likely going to be offering some instruction as to whether or not you guys are even going to be using these fields. Okay, but functionally, this is how they work. So within the listing agreement section, again, if they go 2D, well, you have your office exclusive option here. If you mark yes, it drops some of those required fields because, well, they're not really required at that rate because it's not going out into the MLS. If it is yes for office exclusive. If marked yes for office exclusive, that listing is only going to live in your listing management page. Okay. So your seller wants to go office exclusive for the first 6 months. Okay, fine. Fill out that disclosure form. You're going to come in here. You're going to plug that listing into Bright, mark it yes, office exclusive. Then, whenever that seller is ready to go kind of on the market or non-office exclusive, you just come in here, click no, fill out the rest of the required fields, and then publish. All right, good question, Jay. In what scenarios would Bright request this document? Any scenario. I mean, it could just be a general audit. Somebody could have filed a complaint. I mean, those are really the two general triggers, but yeah, that's it. You know, if somebody calls to file a complaint or if the accuracy and policy department is simply conducting a general audit. So, you know, we do reserve the right to request that document at any time, and that is written into our rules and regs. So again, if you get an email from accuracy and policy, that would probably be the most important email address to keep an eye out for from Bright. All right, so just keep in mind if you get an email from accuracy and policy guys, open it up, read it, you know, take whatever corrective measure you might need to take, and respond. Okay. So you don't want to respond to my email? Fine. That's okay. Respond to the accuracy and policy email. All right. So that's the office exclusive button. You also have concessions offered. Now, right now, you are seeing the drop down. Again, the new field is just going to be a yes, no. Is your seller willing to negotiate for closing costs for the buyer? Okay, if yes, great, mark yes. If no, okay, fine, no. If you don't want to fill it out at all, fine, don't fill it out at all. It's not a required field. So that's concessions offered or seller concessions. Concessions final, and again, you do still see that fourth line there. That's going away. You will only have home repairs, finance related costs, and any other amount. So basically, you have an other field, home repairs, and finance costs. All right. These fields are not required either. However, they are encouraged. Okay. So again, neither of the two fields that we're looking at today are required, but they are encouraged. Well, not necessarily the first one. Okay. So seller concessions, whatever your seller wants to indicate there. Okay. Well, you're talking about closed, again, not required, but encouraged. Concessions final, encouraged. Seller concessions, totally optional. Okay. Last is going to be remarks in internet settings. So this is that internet yes, no button. And notice if I do yes, it turns these other ones kind of like that dark font because, well, they become applicable. If no, well, it's not going out on the web. These other ones don't matter because it's only living in bright. All right, so seller authorizes the listing on the internet. That is the internet yes, no option that we're talking about in A, B, and C of that document. Okay, internet yes, internet no, and then for coming soon, you also have to indicate. So that is this button right here. So if I mark it yes, I will also have the option for authorizing the address on the internet. So occasional, well, it's rather rare instance, but if you're ever browsing, any kind of third-party site that pulls out of the IDX feed, you may have noticed a listing that didn't have a street number or a street name. Well, that's what this button does. It removes the street number, street name from the data feed, so it's just the city, state, and zip that shows up on those third parties. Again, the full address will be in bright, but it won't syndicate out. Okay, so if I mark no, that's what that does. AVM. Anybody know what an AVM is? Anybody wants to throw it in the chat? Just trying to keep everybody awake. I know I need another cup of coffee. Yeah, more or less, auto value. Yeah, I'll take it. So AVM, that's an automated valuation model. Basically, that's a computerized estimate trying to determine the value of a home based off of comps. All right. That's the AVM. If you want to disable the AVM, mark no. All right. So any third party that pulls it should be displaying an AVM. Seller authorizes consumer comments. Believe it or not, guys, there are third party websites out there that allow general consumers to make comments on a listing. Now, if your seller does not want to allow that, well, then you'll mark no here on this field. So, guys, we took a look at the listing agreement section, which has, well, the office exclusive. So that would be D. Concessions offered, the new field. That's a yes, no. Concessions final. Well, this is just going to be 3 fields. No buyer broker costs here in this line. Just repairs, finance related, or any other costs. Last, remarks and internet settings coming down here. So for that question about the URL to your website with possibly compensation information, well, Agent Remarks does allow for URLs. Okay. Again, keeping in mind, guys, no mention of compensation. Okay. I don't want to sound like I'm droning there, but kind of intentional. I'm trying to drive that point home. Okay. Just no mention of comp in the MLS after 814. Okay. So you don't want to try to get creative in the remarks. You don't want to get a big painting in the middle of the living room that says 3%. Again, no coded language. Okay. So agent remarks, if you want to enter a URL to your website, which has that listing, fine. Just no mention of compensation. Okay. And again, last you have the internet yes no option with the three subordinate fields there for basically how does it appear on the internet, if at all. Okay. So yes, I do want it to go out on the web. Okay. Yes, I want the address out there. Same with AVM and consumer comments. Okay. All right, guys. Looks like we do have a question. If a seller decided to not want the address shown after a listing is already live, would checking that option reverse the info on the syndicated sites? That is a very good question. I don't believe so. It's really then a question of when they kind of re-pull that listing data. So whenever they refresh that listing, theoretically it should update. But we all know that some of the third parties do tend to take a while to update. So in short, if you mark it no once it's already published, it'll pull that information off the data feeds. Whether or not those third parties are going to update it in a timely fashion, well, that is another question. All right. Is it okay to put the compensation on our website even if we have an IDX bringing the MLS search to our site? Yeah, that's fine. Again, you just can't have it in bright. All right. So you can display comp on your own website, Facebook, put a 3% bumper sticker on your car if you want. Okay. Just not in the MLS. For existing listings already on the MLS, do we need to do anything? I would say in general, no. Um, we're going to remove the compensation information from all on-market listings on 814. Right, so anything pending or already settled prior to 814, it'll retain that info. So kind of a nice summary way to think of it is any listing in a terminal status, right? Like a final status. It's not going to change. Expired, canceled, um, closed. Okay, those are really the terminal statuses. Withdrawn, temp off, active under contract, not terminal, not final. Okay, so anything terminal is going to retain it. Anything non-terminal will not retain that comp info. It's just going to get removed. Hopefully that made sense. For existing, we already did that one. Yeah, I don't think you want to do that. Any kind of, well, I mean, it is your own offers of comp, but I would be wary of that. Um, when you're talking about what might be qualified as an index, um, I would really just go in that one-off option. Okay, so I don't know if I would put together that list. Uh, but again, I would say defer to your broker of record as to whether or not you guys are going to want to do that. Um, but in terms of the settlement, you don't really want to create any kind of indexing site, kind of aggregating everybody's offers of comp. I know with your kind of statement or suggestion there that you're talking about your own, so be it. I would not recommend it. Um, but I do understand that to be okay. All right. So again, pretty much no. You
Can
don't
I
want to be. You don't
clarify?
want to be this.
Can I
I'm
clarify?
sorry.
Didn't you say we could put in the agent remarks, see external website for more details?
Yes, you can do that. But again, as far as an indexing site aggregating compensation offers, I would likely recommend steering clear of that.
Well, what are you referring to externally then? If it's, and by indexing, do you mean like Linktree or do you mean indexing like a Google spreadsheet with a chart?
Like a Google spreadsheet with a chart, anything aggregating all of like a bunch of comp information for listings, I don't think I would particularly recommend that. If they are your own listings, I think that would then be another question. But again, as far as Bright is concerned, a link in the agent remarks is okay, so long as you're not saying click here for compensation information.
Right. So would your preference be to then that link just go to one, like a Google document that says one property that has one list of compensation?
So again, links are allowed in agent remarks. As far as what that link takes you to, I would say it should be germane to that listing. So, if you're going to put a link in there, I would say it should likely be that for that listing. So, if I click on the link, it should be taking me to that listing page on your website.
It sounds right to me, like you're saying basically don't spend a day calling everybody and writing down what they're offering and put it on your own website. Is that
Right.
that
This is
sounds like
just for me.
I'm not making any recommendations. I'm merely stating right policy. That's it. So there, you can put a link in there. If that's something you guys want to do, that'll be a decision, between, you guys as individual agents and your brokerage instruction.
All right, I'll ask Vicky.
So that external website then, where it'll take you to, as long as we don't mention compensation, but it's okay, it takes you to your other listings that have the same link to it. Like if I have 8 listings, right? So they're going to go to that external website. They're going to say, all right, like listing A has a 2.5%, listing B has 1.5%, listing C has a 3.5%. So it's okay to do that. As long as you go, don't mention compensation, put an external website for additional information, takes you to that website, but it's okay with the other listings to be part of that one, even though it just came from that one market search on that particular property.
I'm sorry, could you summarize that question? I'm not quite sure I follow.
You say an external link, right? So you say for additional information, you go to the external link, but it doesn't have, we don't mention compensation. But on that external link, it shows the realtor's 7 other properties as well with the compensation on it. Is that okay? Even though that
So
buyer was looking for that particular property.
I'm gonna say any link entered into that agent remarks section should be specific to that individual property.
Uh huh.
Full stop.
Okay.
Guys, I do appreciate the questions. Please keep them coming. But again, I do want to repeat, the industry is changing. You simply can't make mention of comp in the MLS. Okay, with that said, as we already discussed, you can put links in agent remarks. And I'll say that those links should be specific to that individual property. Okay.
One other question on the office exclusives. The office, if you already have those off-market office exclusives before the date of 8/14, do I need to send the off-market seller that new form for the office exclusive?
No, if your listing contract was quote unquote grandfathered in prior to that 8/14 drop dead date, no, technically, as far as Bright is concerned, you don't need the form. If you want to do a, kind of a CYA, cover your assets type, thing there, then, that would be between you and the brokers. But as far as Bright is concerned, no, any kind of listing contracts entered into prior to 8/14, no, not necessary.
Except if you extend it. Once you extend it, then you come up with the form. I got you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Right. Looks like we have another question. How about property highlights on the link and include comp? Again, a link in that agent remarks field is okay. I will say it should be specific to that listing. So highlights or otherwise. So guys, that is pretty much it. All right, I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint, and it's really just a quick review of that document. We already did that. This document is required on 8/14 and after for any buyer that you begin working with or any seller you begin working with. All right. So, if you're representing a seller and then you are also helping them purchase a home, guess what, guys? 2 documents. One to go along with the listing contract, one to go along with the buyer agency contract. Right? And again, we don't want to make you fill out more paperwork, but we have to. Right? But we did review those syndication options. So again, in terms of listing entry, when do I enter my listing into Bright now? When do I report it? Okay. It's within 2 days of whatever date it is, the seller wants you, the broker agent, to let buyers and renters learn about that property. So whatever date that is, you have 2 days from that date to get that listing reported to Bright. Then begs the question of how is it going to be reported? Do I, as a seller, want you to plug it in as active, coming soon, or office exclusive? For active and coming soon, you then have to indicate a syndication option or an internet yes, no. For office exclusive, syndication isn't relevant because it's not going to. It is just staying in listing management.
Business days and weekends included for those 2 days to get it in?
Calendar days. Yep, 2
Calendar.
calendar days. So guys, that's it. Nothing terribly mind-bending. That's just my opinion, right? I understand it is a fundamental or a key change, but guys, more of the same, right? So just another conversation that you need to have with that seller or buyer, very clearly outlining. Most importantly, these are negotiable, right? If you're talking about a seller, well, then you have that second part of the form to address. How are we going to use Bright, if at all, to market the property? You have a change in your coming soon limitation. You're going to have a buyer agency contract in order to show a home. Again, the industry's changing a little bit, and we adapt. So to that end, guys, that is it.
Yeah.
All right. Let me know if you have questions. I'll keep the session open for a little bit. And to that end, guys, if you ever want to meet in a one-on-one type setting, I'm going to go ahead and get you my Calendly link here. If you give me just a moment. And this link will take you to my calendar to allow you to pick a date and a time if you ever want to meet and go over anything at Bright. Oh, perfect. All right, there goes that link, guys. And I'm also going to drop that NAR settlement page. All right, guys, here you go. There's that link. All right, so definitely check out that settlement page, guys. I'm going to open that up. I do just want to guide you to a quick resource. Drag that over here. All right, so this is that NAR settlement page. Watch the video, guys. All right, so this is our legal counsel, and then this is our executive vice president of customer success and engagement. Renee, both pretty bright guys. Really, no pun intended. Renee used to work for NAR. Brian, career antitrust attorney. Very interesting information. So I will say watch that video. Also, watch this one as well. All right. You're going to see an option to download a flyer or basically a comparison chart for the new rules. So, guys, give us a shout if you need anything. We are here. I come with your Bright subscription. Use me, don't abuse me, right? So to that end, reach out if you have any questions or issues. I am always happy to help. I understand you guys are right down there in Philly. I am just up here on City Line Avenue, so I know the area. Give me a shout, guys. I'll leave the session open. Ask any questions you might have. Thanks again for being here. I appreciate your attendance and appreciate you trying to learn what's going on here in the industry. So to that end, you guys are going to be in a better boat than those that did not attend. Thank you. And my pleasure, guys. Hopefully you got something out of today. Hopefully you're feeling a little more comfortable about it.